call the, what's today? November 11th, 2024 meeting of Franklin Village Council to order. Let's stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I say also that we should be acknowledging today as Veterans Day, and even more so, that was important for us to do.
What I would like to do in that regard is we have prepared a proclamation from the Franklin Village Council. I'd like to read this in honor of Veterans Day. Whereas members of the Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, and Merchant Marine have answered a higher calling to serve and have helped protect and secure the United States of America at every turn, and whereas the United States of America's veterans answer the call when asked to protect our nation from some of the most brutal tyrants, terrorists, and militaries that the world has ever known, and our veterans stood tall in the face of grave danger and enabled our nation to become a tremendous force for freedom. And whereas our country is forever indebted to our veterans for their courage and exemplary service, and whereas we honor those who laid down their lives in freedom's defense and made the ultimate sacrifice for our benefit, and whereas on Veterans Day, we salute the women and men who have proudly worn the uniform of the United States of America, and the families who have served alongside them. And we affirm our sacred duty as citizens to express our enduring gratitude, both in words and actions, for their service. And whereas these brave men and women and their selfless sacrifices continue to inspire us today as we work to advance peace and extend freedom around the world. And whereas our veterans have positively impacted millions of lives and made our country and the world more secure through their commitment to freedom, the Village of Franklin resolves that their sacrifices will always be remembered. Now therefore, the Village of Franklin Village Council hereby proclaims November 11th, 2024 as Veterans Day. And I would like a motion to approve this proclamation.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, very good. And personally, I couldn't say it better.
Was there a reason you moved to Space Force?
I'm sorry?
You moved to Space Force to listen to the branches of service.
It wasn't written in here. I apologize. You're right. It's a spin-off of the Air Force. Yep. Okay. Roll call.
Trustee Ehrlich,
Here.
trustee Goldberg,
Here.
trustee Hanky,
Here.
trustee Hansen,
Here.
president Lamont,
Here.
trustee Solly,
Here.
trustee Salter.
Here.
Okay. We have an agenda in front of you. We have a motion to adopt
Motion to
it.
adopt the agenda.
Aye, second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, you have the minutes of the October 14th meeting. Motion approved.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any comments? None? David, you guys are good?
Page 2, I think, Paula Swatt's name needs to be corrected as far as spelling. Other than that, everything is
Oh, it's like an F, not an I.
Oh, yeah, on page
2.
2?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. All in favor of
Aye.
approving the minutes? Aye?
Aye.
Okay, public requests and comments. We have a special guest tonight that we're going to read off the public requests and comments. Samantha Steckloff, who is our representative in Lansing. So, Sam, you have 30 seconds.
You know, someone once asked me what I miss most about city council, and I said public comment. Just kidding. No, have fun. I know we have a presentation. I don't know if we're able to bring it up or I can go over it. I'm Samantha Steckloff, your state representative in Lansing. I've been representing the state for 4 years. I'm in my second term, but with new redistricting, I now represent, which is why maybe you don't see me as often as I would hope, Northern Farmington Hills, Northern Southfield, Franklin, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, Southern Bloomfield, the Village of Bloomfield, and a little bit of Birmingham, because why not. My background is in local government. I served on Farmington Hills City Council for 7 years, and my background, professionally, was in higher education, and so I hold the gavel of higher education subcommittee and appropriations. I serve on all appropriation committees, and it's been a wonderful honor to represent this community for the last 2 years. I know that, with these new districts, things can get a little confusing, so if there's anything you ever need from me, you ever need me to be here, please let me know. I hope to work on our communication, especially on my end, a little bit more to be more present for you all. As you can tell, there's 7 communities, and so we're working our best here in the state. We've been working really hard on our appropriations, and I wanted to go over some of our key items and wins here in this upcoming year's state budget. And I know one of the things you might all be excited about is revenue sharing. I know what it's like. Like I said, I came from local government. So there's $75 million increase to revenue sharing. We're also working on a public safety trust fund, $75 million into that, so that will make sure that your budget no longer needs to reflect that public safety funding. It'll be protected in the state, making sure that more money is going into the village's pocketbook. Another thing we really worked on is our school aid. I serve on school aid appropriations, and it's been wonderful to see all the improvements we've been able to do. In our school aid, we freed up about $600 million, not only this year, but also in perpetuity. This is for your teachers that have overpaid into the retiree healthcare system. It will result in an additional about $700 per pupil on top of the per pupil funding we've already done. We just did a supplemental appropriations, putting another $150 million into mental health services. I believe Birmingham, if I can remember off of the top of my head, they will be receiving almost $1 million of an increase for school safety as well as mental health funding. One of the biggest accomplishments we've been able to do is funding free breakfast and lunch for all public students here in the state of Michigan, and making sure to continue with that funding. With higher education, something that I'm most proud of and excited about because I chair it. One of the things that we've been really working on is increasing our scholarships for students here in the state of Michigan. The Michigan Achievement Scholarship now will reflect almost 80% of students here in the state of Michigan. To be admitted for that, you do need to fill out a FAFSA, but it's $5,500 per student. One of the biggest increases we were able to do is how we package financial aid. And so students will also be able to use that scholarship funding for transportation if they need childcare, housing, food, living expenses that'll help students move from a part-time student to possibly a full-time student. Starting this year, Community College for All in the state of Michigan will be funded. Here in Franklin, we do pay into an Oakland County millage, so students here in Franklin will be able to go to all community colleges for free so that's a really exciting thing that we've been working on. Some affordability in our housing. We've increased $100 million for affordable housing. You may have heard about this SOAR program that the governor has been using for strategic readiness projects. Some of the new negotiations in that SOAR project will reflect additional housing, making sure that $100 million per year are set aside for affordable housing. We do know that we're very short in housing stock, so making sure that we've been able to improve the readiness for new site improvements for housing availability. We've been able to fund the Great Start Readiness Program, making sure that all people have access to pre-K. And then, as I said, with our public safety, we've been able to approve the Public Safety Trust Fund. Transportation, we do know that road funding is definitely an issue in Southeast Michigan. We've increased the distribution of how we do our local road funding, about $101 million. Now, I know road funding is an issue. We unfortunately are behind about, I'm trying to keep it to 5 minutes. We're behind about $2 to $3 billion a year. And no matter how we change Act 51, we're never going to get where we need to be because we don't have that additional revenue source. There are 3 things that the state is looking into. I'm going to tell you right now, none of you are going to like any of the 3 things I bring up. One of them includes miles driven, so not just necessarily using the gas tax. We need to improve that system because majority, or as we've seen, more and more EV vehicles are coming onto the market. We're looking at toll roads, sorry. I'm trying to keep it out of the metropolitan area. I know, but hopefully it's just 94. And then an additional tax on packages, anywhere from 15 cents to 25 cents. So those are 3 options we're looking at. As I said, you're not going to like any of the things I bring up, but it's the only way we can get to that $2 billion shortfall. A lot of things that we've been working on in the environmental space. Starting in 2040, everything needs to be carbon neutral and carbon free, anything that's been working in the state of Michigan. We've been working tirelessly with DTE, consumers, making sure that everyone has some sort of stake in this project. The state of Michigan, we've seen over the last year, has become one of the top 5 for environmental jobs to help with climate protections. Really exciting about that. We've invested additional $25 million for our local water infrastructure projects. I see on your agenda that you have your stormwater project. I'm guessing that's 14 Mile? No, okay, I was gonna, all right, got it. I am working on your 14 Mile project because I do know that that's a huge need for you all. An additional $40.3 million of available federal funding to lead our service line and replacement projects. Some of the stuff we're looking at, labor and economic opportunity, $60 million into a new Michigan Innovation Fund, helping our startups, keeping our startups and small businesses in the state of Michigan. Small businesses, we're also looking at being able for your employees to buy into Michigan's retirement system. So it should free up a lot of the additional costs that many of our employers are looking at when it comes to small businesses. I'm a small business owner myself, and I understand that some of the necessities to keep your employees safe, we're going to be able to offer through the state of Michigan. $3 million in a new farm to family program. This is going to be helping our agricultural supply chains and promotion of Michigan food products. An additional $5 million into our animal disease prevention response. We've seen that avian flu has definitely ticked up in the state of Michigan, and we want to make sure that we're battling that. Some additional things, we are providing certified community behavioral health clinics to our counties. This should be helping 35,000 additional individuals, working on a $30.1 million in increase to help with our child support welfare programs, an additional $2.5 million to continue to providing housing for our homeless veterans and their families. What better way to end on Veterans Day with those housing opportunities? I just want to thank you for allowing me to be here and give you some highlights of the budget. I definitely want to help answer questions for you. I just want to say, though, Franklin has a special place in my heart. My mother grew up here, Vicki Barnett, if you know who she is, former mayor of Farmington Hills. Yeah, I know, it's in the family. We look nothing alike, but I know we sound alike. She grew up here, and when my brother was being born, unfortunately, she was in bed rest. So I actually learned to walk and talk in Franklin. So you can attribute all of my amazing things to that. So if there's any questions, I would love to help answer them. If I don't know the answer, let me know and we'll get that for you when I hit the answer.
Spectacular.
Oh, I thank you.
Do you have a card for us?
Oh,
Okay.
Sorry.
Would you hook us up? Because I'd like to talk to you tomorrow.
sounds good.
Okay.
I mean,
I've got.
lame duck starting, so let's go.
Or the next day.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure if this is a Senate or a legislature thing, but, there's been talk for years about the Headley Amendment and changing that altering it, revising it, eliminating it. Do you have any updates on that?
Headley, yes, Headley is like the devil of Prop A.
So this-
Yeah, so unfortunately, because it was a constitutional amendment,
Yeah.
there's not much we can do in the state. And you all know as clearly as I do, anytime you're doing some sort of ballot initiative, you have to explain it to people. Well, how do you explain the Headley Amendment? I keep trying to remind people why they see when they're voting for millages, why sometimes it's a renewal and then you need the additional increase. Unfortunately, I bought a house last year and, well, we know what happens with taxes with the Headley Amendment. One of the biggest issues that Headley has been, really hurting our housing stock is because people don't want to move from their current housing into, even if they were to downsize, they're now paying those additional taxes. So it's something that we're trying to do, trying to work around in the legislature. But I wish I had a better answer for you, but it's probably going to have to be a constitutional amendment.
Okay, thank you.
So around the public safety funding, could you speak more to that? What it could be spent on, how to apply for it?
It's going to be dispersed just like you receive the current funding, like you do for roads funding. So this way, it's going to be a trust fund that we're putting funding into every year. I don't have the exact numbers just yet because it's dependent on each village and community, but I can get those numbers for you. This was just passed in the current budget, and then the policy bills that have to go along with it, I believe, are up for a vote this week. So I should be able to have more information for you on directly the Public Safety Trust Fund.
Then the only other thing is as somebody with young kids, I appreciate the free lunches. One thing to consider is the caveats of how you have to qualify for it. As far as Stuart well knows, they have to take a milk or they're charged, and it just leads to a lot of excess waste. You can't. We have half our kids bringing lunch and half that don't. So if you don't,
You have to take a,
if you don't take certain items, then you're charged. And so what they encourage, so that they don't have parents getting blindsided with it, is take everything, only eat what you want. And it leads to a lot of excess waste because of a contingency for receiving the funds.
Oh, my God.
you are the
didn't know that.
first person who has ever told me that.
No, it's,
Thank you. Definitely going to be bringing that back. We're working on those policy bills, so it's something we can definitely put in there. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything else? I just want to say I chair the Oakland County Caucus. My chief of staff is actually an Oakland County commissioner. So if there's anything you need, partnership between the state and the county, please let me know. I can definitely help assist with that.
Thank you.
All right.
thank you.
Thank you all, and go Lions.
Tonight.
Yes, go Lions.
Okay, cool. Other public requests and comments? Are there folks out there that have public requests and comments? Mr. Reuter?
Hey, you'll hear from me again, but public comment wise, I do think it's a grand experiment we've had to have council meeting at 6 p.m. But I will say that for families with young children, if they want to see their children in the evening, it is more guaranteed they'll be awake from 6 to 7 than from when this meeting ends to when we get home. So I would propose that we go back to the original 7 p.m. time and let the adults suffer and not our children being away from our parents.
Boy, I'm happy about, I
So-
support that.
That was my thought. I understand that might be the only one that has this concern, but I am much more likely to spend time with my family from 5 to 7 than from 9 o'clock after my son goes to bed to 10 o'clock. So if we push it back an hour, Anyway, that's my 2 cents. If someone else has a contrary opinion, there could be a majority that likes the 6 p.m., and that's fine too. I'm just stating what I feel. Thank you.
Cool, thanks. Any other public requests and comments?
This is not really part of the public comments, but since it's not a public hearing tonight for the small cell ordinance, I'd just like the opportunity to speak on behalf of Exponet during our.
Sure, sure,
Thank you.
sure. That it for public requests and comments? Okay, we have Nancy Kalinsky from HRC here tonight. It's going to give us an update on our stormwater project. Nancy?
Good evening, everyone. So HRC, as you know, has been working their way through the village and looking at the drainage and the roads rights of way. We have inspected all of the roads and the ditches, and we are working on our final reports. Meg and I had met a couple weeks ago, and we were just working through the format of the report itself, and I'm going to speak for you, Meg, sorry, that we think that it would be good to present in a work session or whatever y'all call it. So, but I do know that one of the hot areas is over around the corner on Evelyn and Normandy and Vincennes. And we've looked at that area a lot. And please, I know Ms. McNeil is very passionate and has been voiced her concerns with the village in the past. And HRC has looked at that area. So when Meg and I met, I said, why don't I just give you a quick memo? And it kind of outlines what we found over there. And sadly, there is no quick, easy solution. The house north of Miss McNeil, the Evelyn comes down, and the road is the low spot, runs down that driveway through her backyard. So we've looked at the drainage over there, reestablishing the ditches all the way down here to Carroll Street with putting all missing culverts in, culverts that are deteriorated will help. It will not solve the area because there's a very large portion of drainage coming from the top of the hill down, working its way across Evelyn, and then down the driveway through Mrs. McNeil's yard. The village could look at doing some enclosed storm sewer, but that would be quite costly because there's no easy outlet. The natural drainage pattern is over the hills and through the woods, all the way out to the fire station. That's the natural drainage pattern. I mean, we could look at going out either that way or towards Franklin, but HRC would ask for direction from the village to do that because it is quite complicated and there would be some additional costs involved.
Nancy, have you spoken directly with Mrs. McNeil?
Well, my surveyor who was out there a couple weeks ago, actually, she was in Florida, and so the neighbor came out, got Mrs. McNeil on the phone, spoke with my surveyor. I know Eddie Zmek from our office spoke to Ms. McNeil several years ago regarding her lot and her drainage issues.
I'm talking now.
Oh, sir, I did not. I have not. My surveyor has. I have not spoken with Ms. McNeil.
Is she aware of this work that we're referencing? Okay, she knows we're trying to address her concern, okay.
She's watching right now.
Okay.
Oh, is she?
Oh, yeah.
So we understand there is her concerns. We understand that it's very difficult. As we all know, the rains are getting harder, more frequent, more volume. We don't know if things have changed over in the yards north. Evelyn is quite higher than Vincennes. So we don't know if the backyards have changed. People did some grading, took out vegetation, trees. We don't know anything that happened. So to say, one of her concerns is it's getting worse.
Right.
It could be the amount of the rains. It could be some work on private property. We don't know. But what we can do is try to do what we can to stop what's coming down the hill. But that is quite complicated and what will be quite a process.
And I'll just add in here, so the reason that we have this as the focus of the report tonight is because obviously Ann visited council a few weeks ago and had some more concerns. And so what we see here tonight is a direct response to that, having the surveyors go back out and look at that property. But it really is just one piece of a large stormwater discussion that we have to have. So to reiterate what Nancy said there, I really think that it'll be critical for us to have some time set aside, an hour plus, to really look at it as a whole before we start talking solutions. Because at this point, this is but one area, and when we look forward, we want to be looking very comprehensively. So my plan right now was to wait until we have our new council on board, and then to look at some possible dates, end of the year this year, beginning of next year, to sit and go through the entire entire stormwater project that we've put forth. HRC has done a ton of work on that with the village. We have a lot of great information. The work session, of course, would be open to the public, and it would be a really great way for us to come up with a plan moving forward. So tonight is just a brief update in response to Ann from the other night, and we'll work forward to a more comprehensive solution.
I think that's good, and it's, in addition to her visit here, we, members of council, have visited her, and it's very hard to, she's very emotional about it, and she's seen this occurring and getting worse and worse. Is it climate-related? Hard to tell,
So
but at least we're on it.
I don't think Ms. McNeil's looking for the stormwater to be completely eliminated from her property. She understands that historically it always has traversed through her property. But her question is, have all of these other things, alterations to ditches and culverts, people not maintaining some of the obstacles and deflections that were put on their properties in order to control that flow, been eroded over the years, so that it's now multiplied in volume. What I think she's looking for is more to see how we can get it back to its historic rate. It used to traverse through the middle of her property, now it almost goes from her house to her neighbor's house. So it's become a lake instead of a river, if you will, on heavy rains. I think that's her question, is what, if anything, can be done in order to control it better versus completely eliminating it?
Certainly. And as we know, a good portion of the ditches and the driveway culverts in the village haven't been maintained or have been filled in or just been taken out and not put back. We don't know. But yes, there's stuff in the right of way that can be done. But we need to start down here at Carroll, because all that water comes down here, makes its way down in the Carroll Street sewer. So it would be, I actually have a relatively comprehensive ditching program that, for this whole entire area, that will be in the report. We have looked at it. One thing the council will look for, the direction of the council, is there's a lot of driveways, if we can re-ditch and reestablish that drainage pattern, but there is a lot of driveways that do not have culverts. So once we put those ditches in, it's not gonna do any good unless.
It's gonna be a dialogue we're gonna have
So
to
the
have
village needs-
amongst ourselves.
Yes.
And the residents as to where that's gonna get, the money's
Right.
gonna come from.
And then who's responsible for it? Because your ordinance does say,
Well, technically, the residents are.
yeah, so it's gonna be one that they'll need some discussion and a
We're
lot
all
of,
supposed to have culverts under our driveways.
right, so it may get emotional. Because a lot of people don't like driveway ditches, because they're a little harder to maintain. You can't, now I have to weed whip them instead of just riding my lawnmower. I never had a ditch there before. So there's camps there, but ditches are very important for the structural integrity of your road. Yeah, we have to get that water below the stone of that road.
Yeah, so going into that meeting, I think one thing that'd be helpful is understanding the permitting process, because under the new construction, where they possibly could have taken out some of that drainage, I just want to understand what backlash we're going to get from the community to come in and say, I submitted my permits and nothing was, let's understand our process from kind of beginning to end to make sure we have the ability to rebut whatever they say.
I think the other thing we're going to need is, a cost. Cost is always going to be a factor in picking a solution. I'm looking forward to the conversation because it's a long time coming. And, but I also think the residents who come are going to need to understand what the tag is going to be for the village.
So we've obviously, and I've met with Mrs. McNeil as well and seen her property. I don't know that the rest of these residents in this 4-acre spread, they have awareness like Ann McNeil does, right? So as we start talking about, hey, what's the future? We're going to have to dig ditches. We're going to put pipes underneath driveways. It's going to cost money. The sooner we start communicating with them that, you may not be aware, but there is an area-wide effect going on here through various means. We're not assigning fault or blame at this point, but it's time for you to start having some awareness now that's going to transcend through 2025. In a year from now, we're going to have better answers about what the solution will be.
You know, and
But we
probably
should start
that
talking.
needs to happen before we have a big meeting so that people are kind of ready for that conversation.
I think it would be important definitely to notice the meeting and push that so that we can have that engagement. But I think that our first step is really going to be to get ourselves all on the same page of the scope of the work that's been completed here. Because after meeting briefly with Nancy, I mean, HRC and the village have put a ton of work into this. And I think step A, before we start jumping into solutions, is going to be to look at what we've completed so far and get a good understanding of that, and then definitely working with the community to come forward with a solution. And there has to be some community engagement, because residents will need to absorb some responsibility at some point for some of the stormwater. So I think that the work session will be really healthy for us to sort of pick through. I looked at a draft report. It's huge. It's like 200 pages. So it will definitely, tons of great information there, lots of great data points, lots of great reference points for the village. And I'm looking forward to getting that scheduled here shortly, December, January timeframe, where we can work through that. And the point of making that very clear to the public is noted.
What I was referring to, though, is just awareness. So we on council have been aware of Ms. McNeil's issues for a while. I know HRC's been engaged and the administration's been engaged, but I don't think yet that this 4-acre, all these properties, they have any awareness that they're part of the problem yet. And just an awareness level of communication, you know, that this has been going on for, affecting her for multiple years. We've been engaged for 2 years at this point by now. They may have zero awareness right now. So even before a solution or workshop, just be aware that this region, we have, how many houses? 15 houses here, maybe? 10 houses affected or more?
Again, though, this isn't the only
And that's just one
region that we
little
have highlighted too. So when we start looking at awareness, we need to pick through that report and look for our little hot zones, which there are more than just this in the village.
Probably not a
here.
street in the village that doesn't have something that's needed.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's some, but I mean, the good thing is the majority of it is just basic ditch work. We are finding a lot of missing drive culverts or culverts that are just not functional anymore, just of old age. Sadly, this is probably one of the most difficult ones, areas to resolve, to fix the drainage patterns, because it is complicated and it's such a large drainage area. But we're finding that there's pretty good relatively straightforward solutions just by improving the ditches, minus a few hot spots. This is being the main
Raise
one.
her house.
Move it down to the next house, yeah.
So I just want to put a coda on this by saying that one more time, I'm going to be the one to say, as I did when we embarked on this drain study, that we had directed the staff to build into the contract with HRC an educational effort. I don't know if it ever was, but every time we get into the discussion like this, I say it again, and I don't know that anything has been done. We should have been informing the villagers of the work that we're doing, what it means, what we're finding all along. So I'm going to register disappointment. I still think, and I'm with Mark, keeping the people aware of the situation is going to make resolving it easier, even if it's expensive. So, and I don't want to wait till like everybody's in a room, because they're going to get pissed and yell, and we can do it differently.
Now, when does that happen?
Well, yeah.
I thought that was every council meeting. I'm just kidding.
No, you're not.
Good stuff, Nancy.
So would you just please make a note on the minutes that Pam said it again? I just want to, thank you.
Why don't we just play the recording from the
So-
last time?
So if Meg's schedule is available for the next week or so, she and I can meet and we can start really working on this. And get this moving for you. The educational one.
Good.
Absolutely.
Great.
job.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Nancy.
Thanks for this, thanks for all your good work, Nancy.
We just don't want to see Ann McNeil cry. It's heartbreaking.
I understand, and we understand.
Or anybody.
Right, we understand what she's going through. It's just sadly, there's no, we can do this, and we don't have a straightforward answer for her, sadly.
Okay, let's move on to reports of village officers and agents. Bob, I thought you were out there. Go ahead. This is Bob Madlowski, representing the police.
Hi, yes, I am not Kurt Lawson. He is out of town, so instead you get me. A little less height, a little more hair, but here we go. My report will be very brief. First of all, we had no reported issues at any of the polling locations, either the one in Franklin or the one in Bingham Farms. No issues reported to us at all. Second was the Franklinstein event went very well, and the new community policing table that we had seemed to be a very big hit with not just the kids, but also the adults who were there as well. And lastly, the police department, the new generator, the temporary generator is now in place. The new generator is on order. We did go with Oak Electric for that, and we were able to save several thousand more dollars. Total cost for the new generator is now $32,200. And that is the end of my presentation. Are there any questions on the monthly report?
Happy the cost is what it is, that we got worse numbers last month. So thank you for the work that you guys did on that.
Where was this indecent exposure? Was that in Franklin, or?
It was in Franklin.
Okay,
Any other questions?
thank you for your good work.
You're very welcome. Have a good evening.
Chief Alberbach.
Good evening. You've all received our written report from the fire department. The only thing I wanted to add is that we're seeing an increase in the number of carbon monoxide alarms, as well as false fire alarm calls. So a lot of this could be cooking related, but it could also be a lack of maintenance related. So please, if you have a smoke detector, if you have a carbon monoxide detector, please actually read the instructions as to how to maintain them and understand what the beeps are. Also, if you are doing some cooking, if you are doing some renovations before the weather turns, please coordinate with your contractor to make sure the false alarms get reduced to a minimum, as we're seeing an increase in those too. Other than that, that concludes my report, pending your questions.
Questions?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Chief. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Lance, treasurer's report?
Good evening, trustees and president. Please accept my written report in the capacity as the village treasurer. The bills list report for this month totals $245,461.23. The amounts on the bills list are consistent with normal monthly spending, and the expenditures are generally consistent with our budget. The bills list for this month includes a large entry of $13,195. That's for a down payment on the new police generator we paid to Oak Electric Service, previously mentioned by the police. The village has sufficient funds to meet its current and anticipated obligations. A list of account balances in the package is as of November the 1st that we hold at First Merchant Bank. Any questions?
Have you made any headway on those short-term investments?
I can speak to that. So we are right now working on wrapping up our audit. That's going to give us, and we're working on the end of year budget report with Plant Moran. What that's going to do is really give us a good analysis of what kind of funds we would even have available for short-term investments. I've made contact with 2 different firms that specialize in short-term investments specifically for municipalities, offering more flexibility with having access to the funds in case of an emergency. And so what we really need to, what we're waiting for right now are these final numbers from Plant Moran so we can really look seriously at engaging. However, we have met with Lance. We went ahead and talked to him about it. We've been working with Plant Moran on it. So we're making progress. We just need the end of the year finances to get wrapped up so we have some better figures to go off of.
Okay, and that should be pretty soon, right? Since that's July.
Yes, the plan is to have a budget presentation by December. And then obviously the audit has already begun the week before. So by the end of December, the audit will be finished.
The charge for social media, Andrea Walker, Public Relations. $2,000 a month, is that a retainer?
Yes.
And is it based on hours?
It's based on, nope, it's based on the agreement of which we've gone over with Andrea having, it's just based on her, the work that she's doing, not based on hours.
Okay.
Any other questions for Lance?
Thank you, Lynn.
Okay,
Thank
we
you.
have a
sir.
list of bills there. We need a motion
Motion
to
to approve.
approve. And second,
Second.
any other questions about the bills list?
Real quick, first line item, 1011, publish notice of hearing, ZBA. Is that a one-time cost every time? Okay, so that is the cost of just doing the publishing. Okay.
No, I think that depends on the size of the ad. It was a larger ad.
Got it.
So it
Okay.
costs more.
But
Okay.
we pay individually. for
Yeah,
those.
yeah,
Yep.
they'll be entered in as a single item.
It used to be cheaper, but unfortunately our paper of choice no longer does paper. So we have to go with the next cheapest we can find.
Okay, thank you. And then the Michigan Municipal Risk Management, General and Retention Fund installment, what is that related to?
We use that organization to help with all different types of risk management, legal situations, and so we pay that retainer consistently to them.
Okay, and that's the annual?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
That's it for me.
Okay, all in favor of approving the bills list?
Aye.
Okay. Next thing, special reports. I just, in terms of president's reports, I just want to remind everybody this Friday, November 15th, is another bicentennial event. There will be a sing-along with David Osher at the community church. Starts at 6:30 in the evening. If you haven't seen David perform, it's mostly rock and roll stuff, but he puts the words up on the screen, and it's really good deal. So just wanted to remind everybody of that, and hope we see you there. So 6:30, the actual, his program starts at 7. Cider Mill's donating cider. We're gonna do popcorn and stuff like that, so. That's all I have. Any other reports from council?
I do.
Go ahead, Michael.
Don't
I
fight
just-
over it, guys. Don't fight over it.
Yeah, not me and Mark.
Oh, we're doing great.
I just wanted to say I'm very humbled and appreciative, and humbled is not a word I rarely use that word, of the great support received by our village of Franklin for my 5th term. I'm pleased at the outcome of the election. I look forward to another 4 years with this great community that I dearly love. And I want to say that I will miss some of the members of this council that are leaving us, and I know they've served us well. And we look forward to the future. So thank you, one and all. That's all.
I'd like to congratulate Michael and David here on the council with us. It's been a pleasure serving with you. It's been a pleasure serving with Kathy and Bill as well. The one thing I'd like to bring up, it is November 11th, Veterans Day. Veterans Day became a holiday November 11th, 1938. I think it became an official federal holiday. And I had a conversation with Pam last night. Should we consider honoring our veterans? You know, why are we in session? Why is the village office opened on today? Should we consider honoring our veterans and honoring the federal election, or the federal holiday, and having this as a day off for the village offices?
I can answer that. It's based off the police contract.
That's definitely a factor.
Well, public
when
service,
considering
public
it.
safety would keep going, but ourselves,
If we are off and they have to work, then they get extra money. So you have to work it into the contract.
Yeah, adding holidays to village staff would involve the implications that will have on police contracts. So naming a new holiday obviously would then entitle officers to holiday pay, which I mean could be something that we could consider. But that is definitely one of the most important components to adding in a holiday.
well, I think we should understand what the cost is. I mean, what we're saying is we're not going to honor our veterans because it costs too much. That's what we're saying.
I don't know that I would read it that way.
Characterize it.
That's what I'm hearing.
Quite that way.
I think we
Breaking
honor
it
our
down, very
veterans.
basic.
My father was a veteran, I honor his service, but I take your point. We should look at it,
Yeah, we can look at it.
It did come up, David Solly brought it up, and rightfully so. We made the determination to have the meeting because we have an organizational meeting that has to follow a week later, and that complicated this year in particular, being that it was an election year. So it's not something that we took lightly or blew off.
Yeah, I have a couple of items. First one is thank you to everybody who volunteered and participated in Franklinstein. It was awesome to see the community. One of the things that I will continue to encourage this council, as well as any future applicants for community events, is unless there's a logistical reason for doing so, I highly encourage that we close off the streets for a longer period of time, because we had traffic coming from downtown, foot traffic coming from downtown to the Hill, and we had people trying to turn out from the library, and it was just a disaster. Not from planning, but just I feel very strongly that I want, that the community events are the hub of who we are. We have a small community, and I think one of the treasured parts about small communities is those get-togethers where you have really deep connections with your community. And so I think the best way that we can do that is by more appropriately closing off the roads and thinking about where we start the closing, the road closure at. Because again, I just think that for us to truly celebrate it, provide people the opportunity to walk down the streets, not have to think about the dangers of cars. So again, just for future applicants, don't be afraid to extend yourself in what you're asking for from us, and we ultimately can make the decision, but you'll have my support to ensure that your events are going and everybody's well protected. The second thing is just a logistical question around our agenda, which is we have a ton of stuff about rights of way and utilities. And is that purely a coincidence, or is there something that triggered it all to wrap up into a single meeting?
It's a coincidence.
Okay.
There, especially the two Metro Acts that we're considering
Yeah.
this evening, that's a complete coincidence.
Okay.
One is a renewal and one is a new permit, and
Okay.
those just happen to come at the same time. Extenet has obviously shown a lot of interest in Franklin and in their project, and because of the way that that project works, the fiber optics are covered under this Metro Act. Obviously, the pole is covered under the small cell
Yep.
tower.
Yep.
So those two would always kind of run in conjunction, but throwing in that AT&T one, that's a renewal, that's a coincidence.
And there's nothing tied to the ordinance where everybody said, let's rush in the door before the
No,
ordinance gets
no,
passed?
this is just
Okay.
interesting timing.
Okay,
Two different ordinances, two different.
yeah. Okay.
I'm going to follow up on something. I sat in the Main Street Board meeting this past week, and the chief has already offered to keep the roads open as long as the groups want them open. So I think the board is on it, because they
Okay, awesome.
talked about the same thing, and we're really happy that Chief Lawson was
Yeah.
very willing to
Wonderful.
work with them. But thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, absolutely.
My is, I don't have a report, I have a question. So we had a finance committee meeting at the beginning of October, and we were talking about the budget, because that's what you do in finance committee meeting, and I'm looking for a staff budget?
Yep.
Do you have it tonight?
So we don't have that tonight because I need to wait for Plant Moran to close out the numbers from the 23-24 so we can get those figures.
Okay.
So they've been in the office, they were in periodically last week and the week before, and I've been taking phone calls with them, but I need those final numbers in order to really give us a comprehensive view of that. So I would assume that that will be a component of the budget report that's given at the December meeting.
Okay, thank you.
One last comment, David, you brought up Frankenstein Frenzy, so I'll tag on to that. So 2010, my dear wife Angie and I started that. It was her idea with Main Street. She was the original bride. I was a Frankenstein for many years. But since then, we've always worked with this road closure issue. So I'm very happy to see this.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to Angie.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to have a chief that
Yeah.
doesn't mind
Yeah.
closing roads, very honestly. It's a really
I think it
positive
creates a
move.
sense of
Community.
Yeah, very much.
Any other council reports? If not, Meg, you're up.
All right, so it doesn't feel that cold in here today, but we did have some furnace maintenance happening today. And when they came out to inspect a furnace that's attached specifically for this room, they found that there was a crack in the lines, and they had to shut it down immediately for safety concerns. So the furnace that has been keeping this area warm has been disconnected. We have them coming out tomorrow to do a further inspection. It doesn't look like something that can be easily or repaired based on the age of the furnace that's heating this room. I do not have any idea about what kind of financial obligation we're looking at. They're going to be here tomorrow morning to look at, but from now until we have more information on that, council chambers in here could be a bit drafty and cold. The rest of the building is supposed to be secure. They did test the crack in the line for carbon monoxide. It came back negative, but it is their responsibility to immediately disconnect the furnace. So we'll be looking at that. That being said, there were some extra funds that were found and not expended that were put forth with ARPA. Again, these will be discussed at our budget presentation. That might be a good avenue to fund a new furnace over here, but that's very preliminary. I'll have more information after I've talked to them and obtained some quotes at
Do we
what
have
we're
a
looking
maintenance
at.
contract?
We do. I think that's what they were out here doing today. And it was just one gentleman. It was the
And is
maintenance
it-
contract. Yeah.
Who's it with?
Do you remember who it's with?
Is it Sun, isn't it?
Son? Okay.
So there's sufficient hot
Henry,
air.
take care of us.
There's sufficient hot air in this room, council, to keep us.
That was just a little more hot air
No
from this
furnace,
end. Yeah.
it's just fine.
More- a
It's
lot more
perfect
from that
tonight.
side,
I feel very
Just
comfortable.
fine.
Okay.
So more to come on that. And then I wanted to just offer my congratulations to David Goldberg, our president-elect here, Michael Seltzer on his reelection, to thank Bill Lamont, Dr. Ehrlich, and Mark Henke for their time that they have served here, and to let everyone know that our new members will all be sworn in at the November 18th meeting once the election has been certified by the township. And at that point, we'll have the schedule for the upcoming meetings, and that's all to take place at the organizational meeting on the 18th. So I've been acting solo without Roger for about 2 weeks. We've been really busy in that time period, and definitely one of the common themes that I keep hearing are communication and transparency. And so I've been working hard to draft a comprehensive communication plan for the village that will also include public safety communications with some various components. I plan on presenting that at our December meeting with our new council. And I think that what we find is that our government is transparent, but not always having information that's very accessible. As in, you could call us and we'll get you what you're looking for. I want to make sure you can just get online and find what you're looking for. So we've been making some strides in there. We've been making sure that the website is updated with minutes and recordings and those type of things. We're thinking creatively about ways to engage with our community and increase communication. So more to come on that. Trash complaints still remain the #1 phone calls that we're getting in. And as a reminder to everyone at home, over 650,000 residents across Oakland County were affected by the GFL Priority merger. So what we're experiencing in Franklin is not unique. They're just growing pains. Now, staff has been working diligently, as has Priority, to follow up on individual complaints. We encourage our residents to continue to contact the village offices if they have specific concerns or have been unsuccessful with Priority, and we will continue to help see that they are resolved. Now, I do think that they're slowing down a little bit, which is positive, but we ask for everyone's patience, and we can just stay communicative as we work through that. And then a lot of what I've already talked about tonight, we've been busy working with our auditor to complete the annual audit, as well as Plant Moran to really wrap up where the final numbers for the budget were with 23-24. We plan to give you a pretty comprehensive budget presentation at your next meeting, including such caveats as, what you're spending on your staff here, and get all of that over to you. And that's all I have.
One real quick follow-up.
Yes.
With the lead-off of the election, could we get the election results posted in this week and the next, near or at the top of the email? And then also on the website?
Yes, I would definitely post them on the website once they're certified.
Yeah,
I'm
certified,
concerned, I'm cautious to, obviously, we don't expect those to change. It is just healthy practice to wait for the votes to be
Yep.
certified. Once they're certified, I'll have links on our website and we can get that in our newsletter as well. And, you know, it is common that we would be canvassed quite quickly, being that we're relatively small. I would assume we'll hear back on certification the next couple of days, so it's possible it runs in Fridays. If I haven't heard that we're certified yet, of course, it would be the following week. But I think that's a great suggestion, and we'll make sure that it gets in the newsletter and on the website as
All right,
well.
wonderful, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for the memo you circulated.
Thank you.
That was extremely helpful, informative. If those come regularly, that would be very helpful.
Those will be
Keeping us all
bi-weekly.
apprised of what's going on, which then helps us be able to be more reactive to residents, because we're more up to speed.
Absolutely, yes. Okay, and as we work through and really get that dialed in, I'm always open to suggestions. If you have certain topics that you want me to focus on too in my updates, please let me know. I want to keep it really fluid, and it's meant to just improve communications here. I'm planning on sending them out bi-weekly on Fridays, just to keep us all in contact in between council meetings.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
That's it, Meg?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
Stuart?
Do back there. The report from Planning Commission for the month of October. There's several things that we're working on. So communication-wise, thank you for also working on communication. I believe the email from Sarah had been emailed to the council.
Yes, correct.
Okay, good. So those are some ideas that we had initially started with, would be great for you to consider while we're pulling together that packet. The additional, so before you today, we'll talk later about the amendment for the cellular service ordinance update. This is mostly, idea is to bring it up to speed with current government regulations, because our current ordinance is out of date. And we can go into more details later on that. We're also still working for pathways, and we've had discussions on how we can maintain the pathways we have today. Irving is one of the pathways that we've looked at as well. I actually went out to yesterday to look at. And then with regards to historic R3 lots, we've had several villagers from R3 in the historic district come out, but because most of those lots are also impacted by historic district, we also want to make sure they're a part of that conversation as we're making changes to the ordinances that exist within the historic commission's purview. The other ordinance we're working on is the open burn ordinance. I understand from council it was a little more direct with regards to redefining what a bonfire is. The challenges that we feel when we're opening it up and we're looking into it more is when you start making a definition like that, we have the wording has to be done in a way that is clear. And so if we drop off a word, then it might make another area less clear. So unfortunately, I don't have an ordinance to bring for you this month, because the commission feels like we need a little bit more time to work on that. Those are the main points I have for tonight, and then we'll talk more about the new updated ordinance. Any questions from me? Yes.
Just a reminder, where are you at on the master plan that you folks were working on? Has it been adopted? I mean, we haven't seen it.
I believe the master plan is currently being sent out to the area community, waiting for feedback from communities around us. Is that correct?
I haven't received it back from Main Street. There was, when they were talking about doing the redistricting area, they could review that.
Okay, so Main Street is, okay. So right now, Main Street is providing input on that. So that's where we are. You're getting it back from Main Street is the next?
Main
okay.
Street, like Oakland County Main Street?
Here, when we were talking about right before, with the liquor license and how to
Yeah.
get, to spread the licenses more evenly, that was when it was reviewed, because there was a plan with a redistricting, district.
I see. Oh, okay.
And there were certain requirements that had to be included in the master plan for us to apply.
Okay.
That's when we were considering Raj's building, right, Raj's?
I
That was when
remember
we did
that,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I think my question is, so you're still in writing?
No,
So
it's still in review.
Has it gone out to the municipalities?
Then the next step will be for us to send it out to the communities around us in, the 63 days.
63, okay, so it's going to be a bit.
Yes.
All right, thank you. It's just in my mind and.
No, I think perennially it's in our mind, even though it's supposed to be every 5 years.
Thank you, yeah.
So thank you for your question. Any other questions? It's been great working with some of you that aren't going to be here next month. But I appreciate, all that won't be here. Some of you are returning, so that's what I mean. But it's been great working with all of you that are not going to be here next month.
You need help getting here?
It was very clear. Very clear what his message.
You need some help?
How do I put my foot in my mouth? I don't know. I'm good at it. That's why you guys like putting up with me. All right. I'll be here for the rest of the meeting.
Okay, let's,
Not necessarily.
is there a Main Street report? Or?
There's just a brief Main Street report today, and I will go ahead and give that. So we want to give a shout out to everyone who participated in Frankenstein Frenzy. That event is really unique for the community because what that does different than our other events, which they all highlight the downtown, but that one's really about families and communities, and that's what we see when everybody comes down. So it was a wonderful event. We had everybody come down for that. Main Street's been working hard to develop a work plan and focusing on some of their goals and major priorities as they move forward here. We're going to have Sip, Shop, Stroll. It will be on December 6th. I have to say it so slow. I think that's the first time I've ever said it right. That will be held on December 6th, and this event is to highlight all of our wonderful businesses that we have in our downtown community. It's a great night. We'll have more promotional material to come on that. And then the last thing is that Main Street is looking to expand their outreach and start working collectively with our baseball fields that we have down here, which are so very Franklin, and bringing some sort of spring event that would be branded and working together and really introducing all of the people that we have who come from outside of our community to use the ball fields and helping integrate them into our downtown area. So that was something that Main Street had a special meeting to discuss, and there'll be more to come on that shortly.
Thank you.
And the baseball field, you remember, we're working with the baseball league to bring in an old-time baseball game, and it looks like maybe June of next year, we'll have a Greensboro Village.
It'll be, quite an event. They'll dress in the same uniforms. It's a historically accurate baseball game. And so we're very excited about that. The team is actually called the Franklins, even though they're based out of Detroit. So that'll be fun. Those will be, we're looking for other ways to really strengthen that partnership because playing ball in Franklin is so very Franklin.
I have to then take this opportunity for a shameless plug.
Please.
Today, I taped the latest Franklin show, and the entire show was dedicated to Franklin baseball.
Love that.
I interviewed the current vice president, Jeremy, you know his last name, and I'm forgetting it for this brief moment. Phillips, yeah. And then I interviewed 3 former coaches from the early 1990s and 4 former ball players who are now in their 40s, and how that foundation of Franklin baseball, what that meant to them. And I know how important that is. We are so proud of the Franklin Baseball League, and there are many, many great things coming. This interview was really spectacular, and I'm looking forward to it, and it'll drop probably tomorrow.
And where would they see that, Michael?
All over America, baby. TheFranklinShow.com.
Okay.
YouTube.
There you go.
Channel
That's what I was-
15 here in Bloomfield Cable. All over Facebook.
I was gonna let you plug in there.
Well, I think everybody knows, but thank you. Yes.
Okay, before we, that's all our reports. Let's move on to new business. We have a new wireless and small cell wireless communication facility ordinance. Stuart, you want to take the lead on this one?
Glad to. Okay, so it should be in your packet for tonight.
It's under Under your new business tab, there's a letter from McKenna.
Yes. So the purpose is to provide for and regulate the wireless cellular communication facilities pursuant to Section 514 of the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act. Sorry, and the purpose, basically, what it comes down to for us is that our current ordinance in the village is not up to date with existing wireless communication enabling acts that have been passed since the ordinance was written. And so what we have done is we've gone through and we've updated the ordinance to be compliant with that. There's two sections of the ordinance. The first section is for large cell tower large cell tower implementations, and then the second half of the ordinance is for small distributed nodes, which is the one that we've been looking at from Exponent along 13 Mile. So in both those different scenarios, there's an approval process that's slightly different, and there's different constraints for each one of those based upon their the size of those towers as well as the types of service they're providing. Obviously, the larger towers are providing a larger area of service versus the small node. So basically, if you go through, I don't know if you had a chance, how you would like to read through this, but that's the basic summary of the ordinance. There are some things that we can change, and there's a lot of things that we cannot change. So there's various requirements that we are unable to change. But those that we are able to change, we've updated. I believe the easiest ones. How do they call that out? So, for example, minimum setbacks, maximum height, the public and healthy safety documentation requirements that we have, we can't put in there. Some of the requests that we have made that, for example, requesting to have a peak power report that's, I believe, quarterly, to kind of help us understand the power output impact for our neighbors that are in closer proximity. I know that's not a conventional requirement, but we are concerned about radio frequency emissions and just to understand how much power is being produced, because in the application, they do put a power budget out. Are we meeting that? Are we exceeding that? And then also if there's to be a change in power output on the tower, meaning that there's a co-location on that tower or on that pole, rather, we'd like to know when a co-location occurs, so we know that there'll be now a power increase from that site node. So that's another request that's above and beyond what we're allowed to put in there. Above and beyond what minimum requirements are for these applications.
So, real quick, I just want to do a recitation of kind of how we got here, and to the extent that it's inaccurate, anybody can amend what it was. But essentially, when we were notified that Exnet was going to put the small cell nodes up, we had some residents look to our current ordinance for potential remedies to block or encumber that process.
Or to be protected by the ordinance for that application.
Correct.
Right.
So what was then highlighted, though, is that that was out of date with the state law, and it actually had remedies that were not permissible.
Correct.
And so this was an attempt to bring it in line with what the state had, and then, as you said, there were certain areas where you had flexibility to add additional things to. I read through this, and one of the things that did jump off is like, where do we have flexibility, or what decisions did we make? And having a memo that's consistent with that for a quick read, to just be like, okay, I understand that for the most part, my detail in reading this, I need to focus on these areas because this is where we actually have flexibility, whereas, 80% of it I may not. And so while I'm reading for editorial purposes,
Right.
For substance, not really, right? So I think that would be helpful in kind of helping drive some of those decisions for council.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, those are similar requests that we ask in the meeting with McKenna when they're there, but it's not highlighted here for you. I appreciate that comment. Yeah.
Any other questions?
So, I watched your guys' meeting, you guys vetted this out pretty good, and it is pretty much so to get it compliant. I have a couple typos that I found, but outside of that, I mean, I think we need to move this thing forward, so I'm gonna move that, and still subject to everybody reviewing in time for our next meeting, but I'm gonna move that we schedule this for its first reading, at our December.
And would you like me to take into account David's comment with regards to the
Well, if
highlights?
you could get us that, so that we have that in the course of the next month when we're reviewing it, yeah.
Okay.
And I think that will be helpful with the new council coming on as
Yeah,
well.
if there are, and just note the areas that we had the flexibility and the decision you made, whether to implement it or not.
Okay.
That'd be great.
So we have a motion to schedule this for a first reading at the December meeting. Was that a second? Any discussion about that? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so let's put her on the agenda next month and keep it moving.
Yeah, feel free.
I probably should talk before you take the motion, but, thank you. I'm Wally Haley again on behalf of Extenet. I was originally brought here for the small cell piece tonight, but I've been kind of lumped into the B&E all of a sudden too. So if we get to that point, I may be able to address some of that. There was a memo that we did with our office that contrasted the proposed ordinance for you guys, the small cell ordinance, or that half of the ordinance, which is a small cell, and the state law. And I shared that with Peter, and Stuart and I evidently got lost in the translation when we tried to share it. But there's still a number of items that are in this ordinance that are directly contradictory to the state law, directly. And if you go down that path, I don't think you're going to get what you want, and the carriers are not definitely going to have a path that's intended under the state law. For example, the most major thing in the McKenna draft is that any small cell is a special land use, okay? Unless it's a co-location on an existing pole. Look in there, and it'll tell you that. And that's directly contrary. The state law says that if you're 40 feet in your new pole and you're in the right of way where you're supposed to be, and you don't cause any kind of safety or traffic consideration, you will be a permitted use. That's point blank in the state law. Your ordinance doesn't do that. There's a lot of other things. I'm not going to go through them all. You don't want me to sit here and banter some other things, but even down to the level of the fees. The fees for this kind of activity is set by state law. Franklin put their own set of fees in. Maybe is something that normally you could do under many other areas, but not specifically under the state law. So I guess what I would ask is that you can do your first reading and you're free to do whatever you want. But there are, as it sits, I think some areas that still needed to be fleshed out a little bit more and would hopefully work in your favor to do them as well as ours, so that we have direction that when we have 60 people in the room like we did last time, that we have a little bit more concrete path to follow than what we currently have. And I don't think that's going to solve that as it sits.
Why didn't you and Stuart, you weren't able to communicate?
No, we spoke on the phone, but I never got the email.
Yeah, I sent him an email. I presumed he did it, and I tried to follow up with him late last week. But the thing is that it had already been approved by in deference to Stuart. It had already been approved, I think, by the Planning Commission for the next step, bringing it to the council at that point.
It seems to me that our experience with our planning commission is that they're meticulous about being within the law, they know the law, and this is not the first time they've dealt with this stuff. I would like to suggest that before we come back together to do a first reading on this, that these issues are resolved and that our attorney's involved in that conversation. I don't want those kinds of questions in front of us if the village council is going to, dissect and potentially approve first reading of a new ordinance.
We will cooperate with whatever you
Great,
guys want
thank
to do
you.
in that respect. I think
Okay.
it's in everybody's best interest. I mean, we asked it to be tabled last time just so we can let the ordinance run its course, see if we could move the pole at least out of the triangle for the folks. So, yeah, I think everybody's been trying at least to pull the same set of oars. And I'm not saying anything against the planning commission or anything. I think they're doing a job that they're set out to do. I just think there's some issues in it that I think would be in everyone's interest to address before we move that forward.
So you're still planning on putting that pole in that area? I know you pulled the request, or are you still planning on putting a pole up there?
I don't have a final answer on that. I know I don't have to put it, as of right now, I know I don't have to put it in the triangle.
But you are planning on that general area on 13?
Right now, from what I understand, and I'm not privy to that totally at this point, we've kind of shelved that in discussions with the ordinance and stuff like that, so I don't have a final answer. I know that there was ability to move it somewhere down the road. I don't think it's to be as far as the residents would want it necessarily, but it would be further down the road. So,
If it's not needed, we were asked that you don't do it. If you could,
well, yeah,
that's all. I'm just going to voice their opinions
I
as
appreciate
a
that.
last statement.
I appreciate it.
I have a question, being the new administrator here. So it was my understanding that the right-of-way for the small cell tower permit was postponed and pulled and withdrawn in order for us to get the ordinance reviewed, and now we have received another one. So if which we're considering tonight to send over to the planning commission, and so my question is if, like you said, if we need to review this ordinance again, and we have this, and it was Exonent's intent was, to withdraw the application originally to get the ordinance in place, and then they submit another one before the ordinance is in place, I just want to make sure that everything is running appropriately.
Okay, you're 90% right on your assumption. But the one you're not on is the fact is that Exonet submitted a fiber application.
That's not the one I'm talking about. We have two right-of-way applications on our agenda this evening. One is for fiber under the Metro Act. That is obviously a different situation. We have another one here that was a right-of-way application that was just recently submitted on October 16th.
Which is for fiber.
Yep. No.
For
D on
small
the,
cell.
D on our
For
thing.
small cell where?
Right-of-way application.
No, read the right-of-way application. It only deals with fiber and.
I didn't think it said anything, I thought it
couldn't
only said fiber
understand.
optic.
Okay.
It's only fiber.
That's what I
And-
thought it said.
And that's where the confusion, I think, came in a little bit tonight.
That's why I was confused too. I didn't think anything has come in other than a fiber optic
No.
application.
Good.
No, like I said, when I asked for it to be tabled, we put a halt to that. We're waiting for the ordinance to be done, and we will,
Well, I would really like to see your comments to this ordinance get to Chris Duzen and to Stuart Wooters, so that when they meet again before we come back, they can wrestle with that. I'd like them to go, I thought the charge was to bring our ordinance in compliance with the state law.
Right.
And if there's areas where the state law gives us discretion, as trustee Sally mentioned, then that's what I'd like to know as part of the memo he's requested. But if there's other areas where we've taken liberty with the state law and unilaterally decided, like changing fees and things like that, that's where I'd like your memo to come in, because I want to know those things as well.
okay?
Because those are the ones that are challengeable.
Right. I will make sure it's shared.
So how's this process gonna work the next month? Who's in charge here?
The planning commission's in charge.
Okay, you're gonna get, your comments to Stuart?
I think between their next meeting and when we come back in December, we're gonna get a whole new memo that says, here's what we've done to the ordinance. We've done things, if they find it necessary, to address your legal concerns. And then we'll grapple with and then we'll also have the memo that says, here's where we've taken discretion, and we'll grapple with that. But your comments, I think, are the ones that are
Gotcha.
most important.
Okay. We'll do.
If you can get that information to me, because I'm doing planning starting tomorrow, I can make sure the planning and Chris Newman get the same.
I'm doing this as we speak,
And
so I'll forward it to all.
Peter,
Peter has.
you want to stay in the loop here too, right?
I'm sorry?
You want to stay in the loop also?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's, planners come from things different than lawyers and carriers. Everybody has their own piece of the pie. I think it would be very important to have Peter stay in that
I
process.
just want to make sure that we've defined who's going to do what, so there's something to look at next month. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, is that enough discussion on wireless and small cell wireless? Okay, let's move on to item C, which is Robertson Brothers Village of Franklin Sanitary System easement. Initially, Meg, we talked about, this is more information, but we have a resolution that you passed out. You want to clarify what we're doing?
So, do you want to go ahead and give the summary
Sure.
on that, Peter?
Back about 2 decades ago, Franklin Village Council approved of an agreement to allow Robertson, I think it was Brody before, the predecessor to Robertson Brothers, to tap into the sewer main for Franklin along 13 Mile and Inkster. The project, I don't know why it was suspended for a while, but it looks like they tapped into the sewer main, so we need access by way of easement, so we can have ingress and egress to the project. And then we also have a bill of sale in the packet where they're selling us the sewers so that we, which is in effect Oakland County Water Resource Commission, can take care of. I've had discussions with Nancy and with Robertson Brothers attorney. They drafted the easement and they drafted the bill of sale. Nancy, I hate to pass the buck, but do you know what's been done? I know you explained it once, but maybe hearing it from you would be better. How many, I think there are 8 scheduled houses. Only 1 or 2 are built, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe there's,
Oh, 7, okay, that's fine.
there's 8
There's 8 houses.
There's 8
proposed, there
now.
was, yeah, there was, I think
They came
7
back for an extra
originally,
one.
yes, and there was an amendment.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly, I know there's 2 grinder permits been pulled, the building department has that information. Since it is gone through just the building department, HRC doesn't have any involvement with pulling this. However, we did review the as-built and to make sure the sewer was installed correctly. And because the village will then essentially own the sewer that is located in Farmington Hills.
I have a quick question. So some context here. This agreement happened in 2009-10, and now they're building?
Yes, yes,
That's how the world of development moves.
15 years later.
yeah.
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 And the amendment that you're
Capital
talking
government's getting
about
away.
Should we
is
review these dollars?
7 houses. They asked for 8, I think we agreed on
We
7.
agreed on 7 originally. They came back a few years ago and said, we can get an 8th house. Can we get another tap?
Yeah,
That is correct.
And the council approved
we
that
said
extra.
yes, because we had capacity, as I recall.
Yeah,
Yeah,
plenty.
okay,
So
okay.
this 2009 agreement and the dollars involved, is there any impact to the village finances
And
with this
liability.
happening now versus what was considered 2009?
Well, I'm going to kick that one to Peter. There's, in the agreement, there was costs that the residents would have to pay. And it's different than, I believe it's different than from what the Franklin residents were going to have to pay.
Right, it was
The
more.
first year it was double, and after that it went to 1.5, and after that, and I don't have the agreement in front of me, I'm sorry. But however, since it didn't happen, I would, if you ask me, my opinion would be yes, it should be revisited. However, I think that Peter has to answer that question.
I mean, 15 years later.
Well, I mean, it was contemplated to go in perpetuity. So
But there's,
basically, we're just passing, look, we all pay
yes,
a quarterly fee. These 8 people will also pay that same quarterly fee. This agreement allowed us to tap a little vig on top of that.
but I don't believe because of the delay, you're not getting that,
Correct.
some of that.
Well, correct. At this day's cost, it was supposed to only be at
Yeah.
10%.
So the question I had, given this 15 years later, they're actually doing this, Is there a negative or positive impact to village finances with this agreement happening now? We should know that answer.
I don't think so. They're covering their costs, and I've spent minimal fees on this. I did review this stuff. I'm not sure. I think they're supposed to cover Nancy's fees and HRC's fees. But my expenses have been pretty minimal.
So-
But Robertson Brody is supposed to cover that.
But I think the tap fees and what they pay for their charges there'll be no additional cost to the village.
Yeah.
Because that is all passed through. However, we have, because of our fees that were incurred, Peter's fees, et cetera, that's one thing I have communicated with the developer is that these fees have to be paid. And I am not sure the mechanism, whether you guys, the village sends them an invoice to, cover the costs, or it's kind of a little bit late for, normally I would recommend an escrow that they would draw upon, but it's a little late for that. But we certainly, they know that they have to pay for the attorney fees and the engineer fees. We've made that clear. So those are passed through, so I would think there'd need to be an invoice to the developer on those.
We'll invoice that from the village, and because of the time frame is a little different, so the positive financial implications are going to be less than they would have if the project had moved at the desired time back in 2009. But because those 8 homeowners are still going to be required to cover the cost of receiving the utility, we won't have a negative impact on our budget. We won't have a positive impact on our budget either. The cost for the project obviously will be covered by Robertson Homes. The cost for the utility will be paid for by those using the service. But no positive, really no negative. I see that balancing out. Which is obviously different than the original agreement, right?
Yeah,
There was supposed to be
it
a
was supposed to be a
positive.
revenue
So
stream for
if
us.
that's something that we're looking at, then yes, maybe that.
So,
needs to be-
What was the positive-
Wait a minute, Pam just said something. This is your revenue positive for us. That's what you just
Was,
said.
I was not on council, I was on planning, and I remember some of this, but my recollection is that this was to be a positive revenue stream for the village. That was part of the attractiveness. It was capacity, and we were able to more than cover our costs. What you're saying is that it's going to be a break even.
I don't have, it's in the agreement, the fees are in the
Yeah,
agreement.
I have
so
the agreement here.
Okay.
It says, the rate being subject to change by Franklin at any time. In addition, Franklin shall charge a markup of its normal service and usage rate as follows. 50% markup of bills on or before June 30th, 2014. 25% markup of bills between July 1st, 2014 through June 30th, 2018, and a markup of 10% or more, and 10% markup of bills issued on or after July 1st, 2018. So at a minimum, you look at probably 10%, but we can address this with the developer as well.
So maybe I have 90 minutes left on the finance committee here for the village. But as a member of the finance committee, I think we should have some openness about what actually we expected then and make sure we're in the same position. So if we expected positive revenue, then I expect positive revenue now, even if it took me 15 years.
Yeah, so my other question is, with the bill of sale, I would assume that then falls to us for the liabilities. We now own it. And so my question would be, because we also had from the pressure system a recent increase, right? And that's one of the things that I think Rick David has noted a couple times is, like, despite the reserves, we continuously get notice that we need to do these increases. And it's interesting in the sense of, within our community, everybody's paying in in the instance that there's a break. Now that we're introducing these homes outside of the village, if there's a break, it is our residents that are going to be subsidizing the fix to their properties. It just is. They become part of it, but at the same time, what people are paying in will be paying for the maintenance and potential future fixing of properties outside the village. Which just gets back to the point of there should be an incentive for us to do it, not a net zero.
Justifies.
Yeah.
So I would recommend maybe tabling this for today and allowing us the opportunity to revisit the agreement, specifically the section that talks about how this was originally designed and a timeline to be net positive for us, and bring this back in front of council after we've had those discussions.
Yeah, it looks to me like, on page 6, you got section 9.
Yep.
Which is 2014. This was done in 2010, so you want to add 14 years to that date, and that's.
Well, no, theoretically, we were supposed to get 4 years of a 50% markup, and then another 4 years of a 25% markup,
Right.
and then go to 10%. So yeah, we lost those.
It seems straightforward, you just change the
Okay, well-
dates, you take a different, then.
So maybe it should reboot to the present in 4 years.
Yeah,
50%.
exactly. 14 years
I'm
difference.
not sure we get to just
I think that's
unilaterally
pretty
amend contracts like that, but
It says we get to.
Well, you gotta-
It says
Yeah,
that, it says
we
that.
can certainly ask,
Yeah.
never hurts to ask.
Sure,
I will
Okay,
address
so-
with Roberts and Brody's attorney all these issues,
okay,
and hopefully get clarification by next month.
okay. So let's roll this over till next month and work on the dates and.
Yep.
Okay. Any other issues on this one? Okay, let's talk about item D, Exonet right-of-way application. There's an application in here from Exonet.
It's the biggest application I've ever
So the application in front of you is also for fiber optics, as is the next item that you have here, item E. So speaking to Peter here, we have presented, it might be worth kind of looking at them in conjunction as more of one item with two exhibits.
So we're combining D and E.
Correct, and then
Okay.
we already would have the draft agreement here, which we can make some adjustments to, adding item D as an exhibit to that.
Yes, so combining both Extenet applications, the maps and the schematics under Exhibit B, that would cover what we have as the proposed permit. These are all scripted by the Michigan Public Service Commission, and the Franklin ordinance is thankfully parallel with the state statute, which basically says the municipality shall not unreasonably deny their application.
So we're supposed to refer this to planning right now?
No, this doesn't go to planning, this is yes or no from you guys. And the buzzwords are, the legal words are, shall not unreasonably deny an application.
So are we,
We recommend approving it.
this evening?
Correct.
Okay,
And you can probably take AT&T's too, but that's a little separate. So D&E would be the same.
We'll do 18 separate.
Will you do a favor and just explain exactly what we're doing? What this is,
Yeah.
what is this, could you just explain?
Sure. So Extenet has filed 2 applications to place conduit or fiber optics under the ground. Okay. This is governed by the Metro Act. We have a Franklin ordinance, 1026.04, that basically parallels what the state statute says, and it basically says you shall approve it, and you cannot unreasonably deny approval. And we have Wally here.
And I'm pretty, their application is for both. They're going above ground, dumping below ground, going above ground, back below ground. There's areas where they can't go above, they're gonna bore, but traditionally, they're gonna try and keep it above ground, because that's
Where there's
cheaper.
aerial, and I'm not speaking specifically to
Yeah.
this, but where there's aerial, above ground utilities, they will follow those, where there's not, they will,
Go bore.
I will warn you that we do not have a good history of above-ground lines,
Yeah.
so.
But if you look at the map, anything,
No, I know.
the blue lines are going in the air, the yellow lines are going
Yeah.
underground.
And for, just in this consideration, what is the infrastructure for? Is it for communication? Is it for?
This was an add-on to my night.
Yeah.
And
Bill them.
I had chance to look at this for about 10 minutes, all right? What it is, so it's just, we've done this before, and I've actually done it with you folks before too, years and years ago. It's basically, the fiber drives the small cell nodes in Franklin, and into West Bloomfield, and down into Bingham Farms. So the fiber is constantly being upgraded and changed, just like, all your electronic equipment is always changed, the fiber is upgraded and changed too. So basically, this has nothing to do with the actual nodes themselves. It has everything to do with the fiber lines that feed those nodes and what they call the hotel, which is what drives the brains behind the antennas and stuff. So, from, you said above ground, you are correct, and there is an underground component also to the application.
No problem. I made a motion to approve.
So we have a 14-page agreement here, a Metro Act permit that we're expected to approve tonight.
Is this like it says bilateral form, is this like a statutory form that everyone uses, so it's not really, it's pretty
That's correct.
draconian, we're not
Yes.
really negotiating this?
Correct.
If I'm not mistaken, go ahead. It's from the Michigan Public Service Commission. It's already a template there.
Oh, we already had one from 2004.
Nope, that's
Well, that's the-
AT&T. That's the next one.
But-
It's-
but right, but-
Yes, but
but
as you can see, that's.
Same
It's the same
thing.
agreement, you can
Yep.
see
With
the
a different
agreement is
carrier,
the exact same.
There is already a Metro Act in place for Extenet in Franklin. What I think the person who made that application was doing was doing like the amendment showing adding the new route maps that show the changes in the fiber, so you have a complete package that shows all of that stuff. I think that was the driving thing is the application for right away, like Meg pointed out, that she received.
So are council members comfortable moving forward with this right-of-way application?
Yes,
Our village attorney is.
I second the motion.
So who made the motion?
I motion.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the right-of-way telecommunication permit between Extenet and Franklin.
I know that's not your job, but is there any collateral benefit of this? Does this help improve internet speeds,
Oh,
anything
yeah.
like that?
Absolutely.
That AT&T will use for their services?
It's like, AT&T's application is probably very similar. They would stand here and tell you too, that it's for faster fiber, running the lines and, in this particular case, they're adding additional fiber. So, yes, it should, like all technologies, and enhancements, it should be faster, and,
It's not just for the small cell node. Yours is, but the AT&T stuff that we're also.
It could be, they could very well be serving neighborhoods with their, home.
Do you ever coordinate with them so that you use the same, line and?
They use this, I don't think legally they can do that either, but they do share conduit and stuff like that occasionally. It's not, your question is not out of the realm. They do a lot more in the larger cell, the bigger tower world, because each one is a competitive business unto themselves. Sometimes they put, Extenet sometimes puts proprietary fiber in, like they're doing here. In some areas of the country, they may piggyback on somebody else's. So it's a needs of the business kind of
Yeah,
thing.
really depends on the area, yeah, okay. Any other questions about this telecommunications permit?
No, the only, well, then yes.
Yeah.
The additional thing is that I think the context for you as to why we're asking the question is that we don't have fiber optic for internet. But this would not be an infrastructure that could be built off of to
No.
support that. Okay.
No. Not
Said that better than.
not that I know of.
Just wanted to provide that context.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying.
Okay, any other questions?
No, but
No, but?
Yeah, right.
I'm sorry, no more questions allowed.
Thanks.
So all in favor of approving the telecommunications permit between Extenet and Franklin Village, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, okay. So that takes care of C and D. Now we have the same issue with AT&T, whose permit expired a month ago.
It expired in July.
Okay?
And their original agreement that was entered into with the village was in 2004. We've done multiple extensions to that original agreement. Since then, they have brought forward that agreement then did expire in July, and they would like to extend for another 5 years, which is consistent with the original agreement that we had.
Anything changed?
Nothing's
Anything?
changed.
I make
It's
a
just
motion to
a
approve.
formality here.
Motion to approve.
I will second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. The last thing on the agenda is a proclamation for Constitution Week, which is September 17th, is 237 years since the U.S. Constitution was approved, and this resolution recognizes that. Do I have a motion to approve it?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Can we, real quick though, we did approve it, can we please read it into the record?
Yeah, let's read it.
Happy to do it.
Please.
Proclamation for Constitution Week. Whereas the Constitution of the United States of America embodies the principles of our constitutional republic and the liberties it proclaims, and whereas September 17th, 2024 marks the 237th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this most important document and its memorable anniversary, and to the civic celebration which will commemorate the occasion, and whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States designating September 17th through September 23rd as Constitutional Week. Now therefore, I, David Solly, but written as Bill Lamont, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the President of Franklin Village Council in the state of Michigan, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through September 23rd as Constitution Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution by protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, knowing that lost rights may never be regained. Sorry about that, Bill.
Okay. Meeting adjourned again.
Okay. Can I